And James, you should be host now. You good? Everybody, James Mason is here helping run this show, the Connectional Ministries and Communications Coordinator, and just helping as I go to filter through questions and comments if you have them in the chat or anything that I'm kind of missing. So like we did yesterday, I'm going to kind of talk through this handout that I want to give you all. And then after I run through that, I'm going to open the floor for questions. We good? Everybody good? Great. So I'm gonna ask that everybody mute their mic so we can get started. And I'm going to share my screen with you. And for anybody who wasn't on yesterday, my name is Jasmine Haynes. I'm the communications specialist for the conference. And today we're going to talk about using group texting, personal texting, and some guidelines. Not so much walking you through step by step like yesterday with Zoom, because I know a lot of us use texting, more so to just show you some different options, why this could be good and useful in your ministry context, as well as some pros and cons, and then some guidelines and parameters around texting, especially with that being used a lot with youth. And you just want to be careful, have some policies there. So let me go ahead and share my screen. You cannot go up there. Do you know what happens to fish who leave the water? All right, let me go ahead and copy this link so you all can see it too in the chat. Let me stop sharing really quick. Can I use my chat? There we go. Can you all see that? Everybody got that? And you can click on it and follow along with me, or download, save it, and share, whatever it is that you would like to do. So that's the link to the document that I'm going to be walking through as we go through this. So speaking of chat, I'm curious, who am I talking with here? Send your church name and then your district in the chat. If you can find the chat. Does everybody know where the chat is? Okay.
Quiet.
All right. Aldersgate, West Jackson District. Haswell Springs, Seashore, hello, hello. And let me ask this as you all are typing that in. Let me see who uses texting all the time, whether it's personal or one of these group messages, and then who is not really familiar with texting and kind of learning. So say just use or don't use, to be quick and short about it, okay? All right. And I think both will find something useful out of this, because you'll see other ways that you can use it, as well as some guidelines around it. So, and people who don't really use it can see why it may be helpful in their ministry context today. So let's start off. For anybody who's not familiar, group texting services is a platform that allows for two-way communication through messaging. And let me ask one more time, if you guys could all make sure you mute. Make sure everybody's on mute. I know we have, with this social distancing, we've got all kind of things going on in the background that we can't control. Okay, and so there are plenty of ways to use group texting, whether that's through a service or through your phone. I think yesterday when we talked about Zoom and getting to those calls, and then tomorrow when we'll talk about live streaming, things like that, that's kind of communication for the masses, for large groups of people. But you also need that internal communication with the different groups and segments within your church body. So it's good for leadership teams, for councils, committees, worship teams, really great for small groups, and then Bible studies, and then sometimes even with staff needing to communicate things very quickly. So there are several texting services that are group apps and things of that nature. I'm not going to run through all of those. I'm going to touch on these two and then provide you with some links where you can kind of further do research if that's something that you're interested in. And the first one being GroupMe, which has free group texting, group messaging, and it works on every device, whether that's your iPhone, your Android, your iPad, tablet, desktop. It works on everything. And then it works over SMS. And SMS stands for short message service. So basically, if you have GroupMe as an app, and you're trying to get a message out to several people and some of them don't have the app, it's okay. It's going to work over the SMS and it'll just come to their phone as a regular text message. So it's not a requirement that everybody else in GroupMe has the app for it to work, which is really helpful because I know sometimes we can get in the mindset of I don't have space. I don't have data for one more app. I don't want to download one more thing, right? Sometimes that can be a little frustrating with a smartphone. And then you have WhatsApp, which has status updates. You can do broadcasts. You can, send messages with video, also with pictures, and you can share content directly in the messaging. Now, this one is going to more so require your internet, and if you're not on Wi-Fi, it's going to take up some of your data. But that is also another, both of these have been around a while, and they have their pros and cons and different ways of being used. Again, I'm going to talk about personal texting because personally, I get a little frustrated with downloading new apps. And sometimes personal texting is great. Has anybody used the group function? I have an iPhone. I don't know how many of you all do. The group function in iPhone. Sometimes I know at churches, you may just need the council and you just type in the council's numbers and then send things out. That's also a really great way to do it. And if you're like me, say you have a smaller group, I'm going to see, I don't know if you all can see, but if there was a group of more than one person in your phone, you can kind of see. So that's two people. If you click this arrow, the info button at the top, I'm doing this backwards, so I don't know how well that'll go. If you do let me stop the screen share for a second. That would help. And I can see. Let me put this in. All right. So if you touch this info button, do I have it? And see at the top where it says enter group name. You can, if somebody else has an iPhone, you can enter a group name, and that's group texting too. So it's so many ways that you can do this with or without an app. I find that convenient. So let's look at some of the pros and cons of texting, whether that be group texting or personal texting, if you have an app or if you're just using your iPhone, Android, or whatever it is that you have. First and foremost, it's super easy to set up, right? Because everybody may not be able to get into that Zoom call that we had. Everybody may not have a Facebook page. Most people have a smartphone and they can text, right? So it's super easy, can be done, easy to set up. And you can do it not only through your phone, but through your desktop. I've seen people in meetings using GroupMe on their iPads. You can also reach your audience super quick. 98% of all SMS kind of messaging is read within 2 minutes of being sent. So not only do you really hit your target audience, you hit them quickly. So if you need to get quick things out, like a change in Bible study times, because we're virtual now, you can do that without having that next time where you see somebody. You can get quick messages and quick responses. Using group texting allows you to build a highly interactive audience too. And most people today are sending and receiving messages through text, right? So it's another way to meet people where they already are. And then you're much more likely to engage them really well because that phone is right there. And the reason people pick up text messages when they see them pop on their phone because they're usually shorted. And it's like, okay, that's quick. Let me see if I can check it. So some of the cons of this would be those groups, not all of them, but some of the group texting services have really short character limits. And to be honest with you, I don't know that that's fully a con. It's sometimes a pro, because if it doesn't have a character limit, then you should. Make sure if you're texting something to people that you go ahead and get to the point, especially since it's a larger group, is people just don't have time to read really super long text messages. I know one time I was texting my cousin just a thought that I had, and it would took her much longer to reply, and she said, well, thanks for sending me this sermon via text message because it was so long. So make sure whatever you send out, that these are kind of status updates, quick information, that they're not so long that people can get lost in it. And then speaking of getting lost, one of the cons in group messaging is that details can get lost. So say if you are in a large group of people and you're at work and you got really busy, so you're not really kind of checking back and forth on the phone to see what's going on. And then all of a sudden, all you see is that last text message in the group, and it makes absolutely no sense. And you're trying to figure, well, what are we talking about? How did it get there? So one of the cons in group texting is that some of the details can get lost because there's conversation kind of going back and forth that you may not have been, or you probably weren't sitting right there at the phone to where you can kind of follow what's going on. So you don't want miscommunication to happen while you're using texting. And then the last con is if you ask an individual question, please expect a group response. So if there's something you need to say to one person, you need to text them individually or have a conversation with them individually, because you're going to get, especially if you're on a group text messaging with 17 other people. And even if you specifically, sometimes I'll do at so and so, somebody else might chime in because, again, everybody else can see it. So expect a group response. Make sure you're using this to get some kind of message to everyone and not just so much an individual. So, any questions so far about that before I move on to our second half of what we're going to be talking about today? Let me stop the screen share so I can see. Okay, so you have GroupMe for youth, and Viber is another app that allows texting groups. Okay, Viber. I haven't heard of Viber, but thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think it's really good with youth for that reason. It's really quick responses they can look. And the whole point of this series is to offer options. Options, whether it's live streaming, online or offline. And while I'm saying that, before I forget, can I mention something to you all who, if you're at a church that, everybody may not be all that much of a digital native and want to do things online, there is a flyer. I got this from my colleague in West Virginia, and it was about a church that didn't use internet and didn't live stream, but they had low power FM transmitters. And what they did was, let me make sure. I just realized, did I push record? I think I did. What they did, they had everybody come to the parking lot, and then they took these low power FM transmitters and they listened to the sermon from their car without having to, interact with each other. So that's another way, another option, if maybe everybody is not up to speed and online and with the digital era. So I did want to share that with you all. Okay. So that being said, using this is great. It's an opportunity to develop a deeper relationship in new ways. I know a group I have at church that we text about, it's worship, but we're also friends, and we've kind of in that texting, gotten closer because we send these little notes of encouragement to each other as the week goes by before we see each other again at rehearsal. So it's great in deepening and engaging people, deepening relationships. But if you don't set some boundaries around it, there can be some serious consequences. So how many of you all have? I'll stop share so I can see. You can raise your hand, or you can raise your hand digitally. How many of you have maybe a policy around texting or communications or social media, whether that's in general or in engaging you? Anybody? Two. Okay. Um, so since you don't have one, I would definitely download this sheet because it's at least something to have in place until you have a more fully developed one. So let's scroll back down there. Okay, so this seemingly goes without saying, but it's good to put in your guidelines, because unfortunately, common sense is not a flower that grows in everyone's garden. One of the first things I would say is that you want to make sure anybody who's engaging with youth, and in anything with church for that matter, they don't transmit any messages that have illicit, unsavory, pornographic, or harassing or disrespectful communication with each other, especially when minors are involved and it's related to ministry activities. Again, that seems to go without saying, but it's important to make sure to put that in any guidelines that you have. I'm not going to read all of these, but I do want to hit some highlights and expand on some areas of them a little bit. So, except in an emergency, anybody who engages with youth, you shouldn't transmit any of their personal information, especially if the minor is participating in something and his or her parents haven't signed any consent forms to release their information. So that's texting, that's any other kind of public and electronic communication, like their number, their name, even their picture or email address. So that's not just with youth, that applies, I would say, with adults as well. We get to, in the districts, do these cares and concerns. A lot of times they're deaths or clergy deaths, but sometimes they may be concerns throughout the district. I tell district secretaries, even if they tell you specifically what it is they're praying for, so-and-so went into the hospital to have this surgery, and all this is personal information, we want to make sure we're in compliance with HIPAA. And we don't want to divulge people's personal information, so that they're not safe, whether that's digitally, anything to do with their insurance, basically just making sure they have a right to privacy. So we want to comply with HIPAA. Third, just use judgment about electronic communication. And I put the home phone rule here just for people who remember having those home phones, but we used to say, don't contact people before 8 a.m. and then after 8 p.m. And I would do the same with the texting, especially when it involves minors. Just don't contact them then. And then if they have if they respond to you and it's not an emergency, outside of that time period, I would wait until the morning to reply. Make sure whatever privacy settings you have and however you treat one youth or pastors, if you're on the phone, even one person in your congregation, just make sure you use that consistently along everyone. Don't invite one person and not another. Don't talk to one and not another. Don't share with one and not another. That's crucial. If you choose to use texting to communicate with students, make sure you invite other workers. This is basically practicing safe sanctuary digitally. Make sure that there is somebody else who can view the content that you're sending, whether that's parents, whether that's workers, staff, or other people who are working in ministry with you. And then make sure that the parents are aware that everything is public. Any images, video, there's nothing private. There aren't any channels that are confidential. Make sure everything is in public areas, that it's not shared privately. And then again, it's important to be consistent among all platforms with all students. Don't single out one and have a message with one. It's a good idea, number 7, to create these covenants that talk about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, who can join, and then what activity in the group would cause somebody to be removed from the group texting, what is going to be published, and then who and how will photos be shared. And make sure if you do share those, did you get the guardian of that student's permission to do that? 8, anything inappropriate needs to be deleted and addressed immediately. Not just deleted, but addressed. It needs to be brought to somebody's attention and leadership. I would not do video chatting. That is a function of some group texting services, but I wouldn't do group chatting at all. I have strongly discouraged. But if you do, it's important that you're aware of where you are, what's behind you, what you're wearing, at that point in time. So be mindful of that. And then make sure that your texts communicate facts and not feelings, okay? If you have something that feels like it raises concerns, please let somebody else know what those are. So I want to give you a couple of resources, because as this goes on, the first line of defense to get additional stuff. I can't update the website as fast as I can social media. So you can go to our conference Facebook page, and it has constant updates on anything with congregational care and coronavirus. I posted something this morning, and it was like an online Bible study system that people can check out and try for 14 days. So definitely visit there. On the stuff specifically related to care in the coronavirus, congregational care in the coronavirus, you can go to this first link under additional resources. And if you don't just copy that link from the sheet, you can also go to the homepage, click more, and it'll take you there. And I want you to see, I don't know if I can move my video so you can see it, but on that sidebar, it has things from online worship to Holy Communion, and at the bottom you can see youth ministry resources, what to do with weddings and funerals, so on and so forth. So you can find a lot of resources there. And then the two that I brought up, GroupMe, that one is linked there, so you can learn more about that. And there was this article on how to use WhatsApp for ministry. So that one I've found to be extremely helpful too. So I'm gonna stop share. Does anybody have any questions? No questions? What? Well, let me ask you a question. How are you all using group texting right now? I heard somebody say with their youth group. So the person who texts me with youth group, are you using it to engage them in maybe a daily devotional, or is it mostly kind of updating them when you all are having things? And you can text that or unmute. That's up to you. Let's see, got 2 new messages. Okay, well, oh, here goes some response. Okay, so with what you mentioned about group chatting with video, are you including Zoom and like platforms? We are limited how we can interact, so these may be the only ways we can have class. Okay. Okay, with the video, I'm saying one-on-one. If you have video like FaceTime my biggest thing is one-on-one. Don't be the only person, the only adult present with that young person. So no, that doesn't apply to Zoom unless it's just you and that other person. But if you all have class online, it's you and 3 other minors. And I would still encourage you to have another adult present, whether that be the pastor or one of their one of their parents or some other youth leader. I think that's an excellent idea. I would record it as well. Just so, there's nothing to refute. There's evidence that nothing, funny went on. Does that answer your question? Another question. Where do you go to download? I went down too far. Okay. I'm gonna, as I finish this and wrap the recording, I'll post the link to the document as well as to this recording on the website, but I can repost that link if you'd like. It's at the top of the chat. It was probably the first thing that I put in there. So I'll do that before I get offline. I can repost that link for that document, okay? Most of mine is group information only. Okay, good. Where do we print? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Anybody else using the messaging, the text messaging? It's really good at this time too if you all are trying to get onto the Zoom calls and during live stream for worship and then Bible study, because you can notify people pretty quickly. We're in a rapidly changing kind of situation. Everything's hour by hour, minute by minute. So when you need to get things out quickly, it's super helpful. And you can text the links out. Hey, we're going live at 11 a.m. We're doing Bible study at 6. Here's the Zoom link. Good. GroupMe, Zoom, Facebook, everywhere you can to connect. Absolutely. I know a lot of people, if you watch news, it seems all grim, but this is really a great opportunity to step up as the church and come for people and reach a whole new online parish in a new way. So I'm super excited. Any other questions or comments anybody wants to share before I hop offline? No?
Jasmine, do you want to give a promo about the session tomorrow?
I do. Thank you. I was thinking, I said, what should I promote before I get off? So tomorrow, we will be looking at live streaming. Again, that one will not be walking through every single last element of live streaming of every type of live streaming system, though I will have a sheet that references different pros and cons of different kinds. There's so many. You can do it on Vimeo, YouTube, Facebook. I probably will walk through Facebook Live. And how to do that. But another big piece of that with going live that we don't think about because we're just physically in church is when you sing, we didn't originally create that music. And if you go online, you need a CCLI license to broadcast certain music. The hymnal is not an exclusion to that. There's licensing for the hymnals. I'll talk about, and some of them have relaxed their licensing, but Facebook will kick you off and YouTube will kick you off. So we'll talk about things like that with streaming so that you can be aware of what pitfalls to avoid and what are some best practices when you're live streaming, okay? The link to that is also in the email. How did you all get this? Mostly by eBlast? eBlast on Monday? Or social media, maybe on Facebook throughout the week. So it'll be on both. And I'll post that today. You got the eBlast rather, but the link to that one for tomorrow will be on social media as well. So. James, anything else I need to promote? Okay. Well, let me say this. I'm super excited for all of you all's ministries because we're in this whole new world that's awesome. And this is an opportunity to get, folk who maybe want to ignore technology rolling within the 21st century. So if we're unable to attend tomorrow's meeting, is there somewhere we can go to get the recording? Yes, I'm recording these. I will probably upload them to YouTube and share on social media, but I'll probably put them on the website too. I realize everybody does not have the greatest bandwidth, and there'll be a place where you can click the link on the video and then download it if you want to share with your church, but y'all don't have Wi-Fi. Well, never mind, we're not physical anymore. But if you wanted a downloaded version, you could get that too. So yes, we will make that available. Those will all go up on the website and they'll all be shared on Facebook. So without that being said, can I just pray for you all before we go as it is 12:29, so I'm going to cut you all loose because I said 30 minutes or less. So let us pray. Gracious God, how excellent is your name in all the earth. And we just thank you for the blessing of every day and the opportunity that when things are uncertain and unknown, that you hold the whole world in your hands, God. We thank you for your sovereignty. Thank you for this opportunity to experience and share the gospel in new ways that, well, they might be new to some people and they might be a new opportunity to others, God. So help us in this great commission that you've given to us to share the gospel throughout all the corners of the world, Lord. Bless all these media and communication ministries and help everybody feel comfortable with exploring and taking time to do new things. God, we ask all these wonderful things in your holy son, Jesus' name. And all God's people say, amen. All right. I'm looking forward to hearing success stories from you guys. And when I come in your district for communications training, I look forward to seeing you there because I think everybody will have a new excitement about communications ministry. Y'all have a good lunch, okay? Bye. Oh, and in case you don't know, leave meeting is at the bottom right corner of your screen if you're trying to get out.